So where's the image of that first? So let's take the same logic, because you're like, no, this perspective. Okay, cool. So we're going to look at it from a broad perspective again. Imagine we got James standing in Iceland and I'm at Australia, and we both send up a hot air balloon at the same time. And remember, we can see from Mars, we can see everything. So the hot air balloons, do they go like that? And if they go like that, that means that hot air balloon's upside down, because I can see the whole thing. So how's that work?
Like, mate, like you said.
Cool. So welcome to Lads Talk Health. And today is just going to be a slightly different topic than what we're used to talking about, but it's a common topic me and James talk about and have spoken about for a number of years now.
I want to say something, Harry. I don't think, how about this? We don't actually name the topic. How about we just talk about heliocentrism?
Let's talk about how we've got to this in terms of what does it mean to you in terms of truth, in terms of to your awakening, your journey, like what is the rationale for me? It's like when we look at these things, it's now trying to put pieces together and be like, spiritual creatures hiding us from existence and all this sort of stuff. So we'll lead on to it, because I want to try to keep this as simple and basic, logical thinking, logical conversation as we can. And me and James are, I'd say we're truth seekers. We're not conspiracy theorists, which is this label that's been thrown around. The whole world's turning into a conspiracy theorist now, with all these marches and all these people questioning what's going on with this narrative that we're seeing. But a truth seeker for me, it's my own truth. It's finding out things that feel right for me. And when you're on a spiritual journey, it's all about finding yourself and reconnecting to yourself. And what I found along my journey is that there's so many things that I believe and I felt it, and it's very difficult now to change my mind, but that's not the same for everyone else. And it's a journey. I'm on a journey separate to someone else, which means they're not maybe ready for some of these things that we're talking about, which now I realize is okay. But usually this then challenges people, which then is followed with aggression, it's followed with anger, it's followed with frustration, and I think it's a form of suffering.
Persecution. I mean, this is everything for me leads back to this. When I've said this so many times, because again, this is from my experience, is as long as I thought that I was just part of this, as I call it, fart in space that happened, and all of a sudden, everything that you see and feel and smell and touch around you, your senses, is, we're told obviously, is just to be one big accident. That, like anything else in life, you tell me one thing that you can ever build where the foundation was an accident. It's not what it was. It wasn't created. It just happened. Anything in your life that has any meaning to it, has it been an accident? Because in mine, it hasn't. There's always been a creator to the incident, to whatever it is, just to being. There's been. So for me, this subject is the biggest spiritual subject. It's bigger than any religion. Why is it bigger than any religion? Because man didn't write this, funny enough. You can actually gain, not gain, that's because you've already got it.
Yeah, you're already there.
All you need to do is trust yourself. If you start trusting in your soul, and for me, peel back all your layers back to where did it start for you? Because surely a big part of every single soul on this plane is, where do we live? How did we get here? Because for me, I'm not religious. Like I said, I've got nothing, disclaimer, nothing against religion. You do you. You do you. For me, I don't need religion because I don't need a book written by a man or a woman to tell me what I know now. Finally, in here, you look inwards. Okay, funnily enough, for me, you've got the answers to absolutely everything. There's not one thing. When I say not one thing, there's not one problem you can encounter that you haven't got the answer to. Most times it's not your problem. It's never your problem in the first place. It's your ego's problem.
Yeah, you've made it yours.
Yeah, but so yeah, I'm with you on this. This after all the stuff, and obviously me and Harry, we've covered in the 13 years I've known Harry now. We have talked about everything and anything that people would say you're off your feet. But we didn't just take that egotistical view of, oh, you're off your trolley. When you start scratching the surface, there's actually a plethora of evidence to just suggest there might be a different way of thinking. Even if you just start there, rather than just shut it down, you're bringing this, you're that. And for me personally, I can't speak for Harry, but I'll just speak for me. Finding out myself, the science of where I come from, which is irrefutable, which is what we're going to discuss. It's irrefutable, and we'll give you the science that you're taught to prove what we're saying. In fact, it's not coming from us. This is like, I just want to very sorry, I want to hand back to you. I just want to shout out people like Allegedly Dave, Nathan Oakley, Quantum Eraser. These are people for me anyway.
Eric DeBay.
Eric DeBay. Yeah, go on, mate. Anyone else you got?
ODD TV.
Big one.
Yeah. What's his name?
Loads.
There is loads. Bonacci. He's incredible.
Eddie Bravo.
Eddie Bravo, yeah. I want dinner with him.
In the party, at least. Yeah, shout out to all you people, because all of them names we've just mentioned, millions and billions of people will ridicule. But guess what? There are still...
Or have done.
There's still millions of people, just like me and Harry, that will testify to what they made me aware of. And the difference between mainstream and what they're teaching is what they teach is, don't take my word for it. Go and have a look yourself. And guess what? I did that rather than all this shit we're taught from mainstream science where you can't touch nothing, you can't even stuff you look at. No, that's not what you're seeing. It's an inferior superluminary mirage. What? So my point is, yeah, this for me is back to what we touched on yesterday, Harry, about being able to trust your own senses. We've got 5 senses. Start using all 5 in a very simplistic manner in how they're supposed to be used, and I guarantee you pretty much everything in your life will change.
So I want to kind of touch on where you went here, because when I was born, or when I was growing up, I was led to believe that there was 2 schools of thought. One was religion and God, and the other one was a Big Bang theory. But both of those I still don't think are either now. I think there's one before all of that, which is just truth, spirituality. We are these spiritual beings. And this notion of God and the creator, I think it is similar to the way that I think now. I was the most anti-religion, most anti-God, most anti-anything like that. I just didn't want to know, didn't have even an interest in it. I believe that we are a creation, 1,000,000%. If you literally just take the time to notice and look outside and just see how incredible this universe is. Like, we have plants that grow fruit that we then eat to keep us alive. And this whole cycle keeps repeating. No, that's not an accident. It's impossible to be an accident. You get flowers that bloom out into this beautiful, amazing thing out of nowhere. That's not from any sort of accident. So it was kind of a big question is like, who am I? Like, why are we here? And a lot of that when I was younger, I always have, what happens when you die? And I used to get scared of dying, like literally panic that the whole world would go on without me, and I was insignificant. I was just forgotten about. It was gone, nothing there anymore. That scared the shit out of me as a kid. I cried, and my mum used to say, "No, that we go off onto these other things," and da 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 da. And but now I'm 1,000,000% believe that we are. This is just a human experience. We are still always there, and I say we. This thing that's thinking. This presence of awareness, and these words sound quite woo-woo, so we're going to break it down and simplify it even more. But a lot of the stuff what we're talking about is not me and James saying this is how it is. What we're going to be doing is asking you questions. Like, actually take the time to answer it for yourself. Don't just guess it. Don't just think, oh no, that's it, that's what it is, that's what I've been told. Like, strip it back. How do you know that? How do you know it's true? Like, what have you done? Not trusted someone else has shown you. What have you done? Because when we're looking for truth, or for me especially, if it doesn't really make sense to me, I want to find out more. I want to ask questions. I'm going to do a bit more research. But that bit when James says scratch the surface and then you go in, you do your research, what we've been told doesn't make sense. Like it's they're giving me a difficult answer, which I can't work out. Or they give me these numbers and start telling me, well, it's because of this, this, and this. So I wanted you to start, James, in terms of just getting people thinking, like, just to kind of, I guess the first thing really is to ask people, look, this is a video and there's going to be plenty more of them for people just to let go of what you know.
Yeah.
Let go of all your beliefs. And the other thing I want people to do is check into your emotions, because when these topics do get discussed, the first thing that happens unconsciously, subconsciously, is aggression, is anger, frustration, because our ego wants to defend what we know as truth. I'm going to ask you, just pause on that feeling, check into it, that urge to react, like we do on social media when we see a post and we don't agree with it, and then just ask yourself again, okay, why have I gone to this reaction?
And importantly, something you said that I've got to pull you on. Your ego jumps up in with aggression, but it's not from a knowing of truth. It's not. It's from a fear of the truth. That's what it really is. It jumps in because all of a sudden it's like because what and how simple this is. I'm going to kick off with question one, Harry, in a second. Actually, is what we're about to talk about, like I said, Harry, actually, we've not discussed this, so I'm going to go in with a format that I've not talked about, and then it's entirely up to you what format you want to go with. But the first thing I want to talk to people, because I dropped this at the end of our last Lads Talk Health video, first and foremost, people, do you know that there are 2 types of gravity? So I just want that to sink in for a second, okay? There's 2 types of gravity. You've got Einsteinian gravity and you've got Newtonian gravity. Now, hands up out there who knows gravity is a force. Oh, I do. Well, guess what? Fact, since 1915, Einsteinian gravity, which is the current narrative, which is the bending of space and time, superseded Newtonian gravity, which was a force calculated at 9 meters per second squared drop. So, superseded, define that word, took over, basically, okay? Nonsense. Einsteinian gravity, nonsense. Newtonian gravity. There is no current force attributed to the current narrative of gravity. Now, Harry, actually, what does that mean?
Well, in terms of gravity, it's just a concept that we've been told. It's like when you ask people what is gravity, we just say, oh, it's something that keeps us on this earth. It keeps us holding down. But what is that? And if that is holding us down, like James just asked, what type of gravity are you paying attention to make that claim that we're being held down? Dropping things like that is the definition of gravity, but yet we're also explained that gravity on this big ball Earth that we're on, the ocean underneath is stuck in with gravity. We don't fall off because gravity pulls us down. And so what gravity do you follow?
But even more than that, mate, because according to current narrative, according to, I'm going to give you reference points. George Musa, very famous astrophysicist. Look into his work, people. Okay, he's of mainstream opinion, by the way. So if mainstream science since 1915 has said that there is no such force as gravity, then like Harry just said, what is holding everything to, and bear in mind, people, if you subscribe to the current narrative, which if I'm not, by the way, everything we say is not coming from a patronizing standpoint at all. Look into everything we're saying as well. And if I explain words, it's because when I started, I needed it explaining. Okay. I didn't even know what the heliocentric model was. That's the model you subscribe to. And just know you believe that there's people in Australia that's spinning around upside down at 1,000 miles per hour currently, but there's no force, according to science, anymore since 1915 that is holding them on. How does that work?
And I'm going to quickly jump in as well. There's going to be a few times where we have to backtrack just to get people thinking. When people say, oh, it's science, though, it's scientifically proved. This is the thing that always gets thrown at me on everything I look into. But scientific, my question is, can you show me the science? That's all I want to see, because I'm about finding truth, and I don't like confrontation. I don't like wasting time and hours on things that I don't feel like I need to. But when I can't find out the answer, I have to keep looking. I can't, something inside me is like, no, I need to find out. So when people say, oh, it's scientifically proven, throughout these conversations, that's the first thing I'm going to ask. If it is scientifically proven, can you show me the science or the research or the study to prove it? Because that's the one thing that I first went to. Oh, I'll find a science. I couldn't on many of these topics we're going to discuss.
And now let me answer that from a so-called mainstream scientific approach. Someone like George Musa, which, by the way, I'm going to put in brackets before their science, pseudo-science, which it is. Look, define pseudo-science yourself. Okay. Where to start, mate? If sticking on the subject of gravity for a second, because the reason, okay, actually, let's bring something that you probably all do know about. Within the last 3 years, the position of the moon has changed. And the reason we was told was they knew for years, but it got lost in the, I think it's called, was it trigonometry, the data? I forgot what it's called now. But they knew for years, but it got lost in the data, okay? And they just found out a few years ago that, oh, the moon is within Earth's atmosphere. Now, we might jump about a bit, but again, I want to punch, because Harry, we're going to have to put this video into parts, you know, because I've just, the amount of stuff that's going off now.
No.
It's simple, because again, gravity is very, very important in all this, because trust me, your belief in gravity is preventing you from knowing just how freaking amazing you are, and how amazing your kids are, and how unique you are, how incredible you are, and the fact that there is never ever going to be another one of you. You're not an accident. You created. How fucking amazing is that? So anyway, back to gravity. So if the moon is now, which again is fact, look it up, all of this stuff will give you reference points for. Go look at the changing of the position of the moon and how it was celebrated and people was clapping in NASA. Woo! Now look at the story we're told of how the only possible way they could calculate the moon, the travel, the first trip to the moon was on the distance. That was how they had to calculate the amount of fuel they needed to get there and back, was what we're told was pinpoint mathematics. Side note, mathematics is a made-up human language, just so you know. It's made up. So if they've just found out in the last 3 years that the moon, and it worked, they've not moved it by a smidgen. They've moved it by thousands of miles. thousands of miles that moved it by. How the fuck did they get to the moon?
Yeah, that's going to be one of the main talking points as well, because all of these things, there's so within each topic, there's so much to go and dive in. So maybe today it'd be worth just asking a few questions on a number of the ones, just to get people thinking.
Think so, because I've got to be wary of the school run as well. Honestly, mate, my juices are there's we spoke about over the years is all flooding back, all of it. So yeah, I think that's a good idea. So actually, like, I've the moon landing. Go on, you crack off with one.
Okay, so here's the one that I always ask people. How do you know that we're spinning? Like, how do you actually know that we're spinning? We've been told we're spinning, but how do you know? Where have you felt it? Where have you seen it? Where have you been shown it? Where have you been explained it? Like, really think about that. And when you go and look to find out how we spin, some numpty might come back, oh, you got pendulums. I'm like, what? So a pendulum that's hanging from a ceiling proves that the whole world spins, and that's how you know. Or NASA. We just touched on the moon landing. If you just take the time to pay some interest and do some research, and again, I'm not saying this in a cocky way, because this is me. No, it isn't. Just take the time, show some interest, because some of these things sound so out there because someone else told you it was true. You won't even take the time to look at it because it's irrelevant. It's not important. But when you do look into it, it opens up the doors or gets you down a rabbit hole, and you start becoming a lot more interested in everything in our lives. Everything. That's where. But also you trust in yourself a lot more, because now we have questions like, actually, that don't seem right, and I've been following that person for a long time. Let me go and find out. And some of the people that we have been following and learning from over the years, you start to question that too.
Right, next one. And I just looked to my left and realized, now, on a clear day, you're not going to be able to see this, but Harry, can you basically see the ocean?
Yeah.
Can you see the horizon line where the sky meets the sea?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to touch on the horizon. I'll give you that one. But what I will touch on is, on a clear day, where I live in Spain, I can see Africa. Now, why is that important, people? Because since the dawn of time and people started sticking sticks inside of Earth to measure how big Earth is, we've been told that for every mile you travel, there is a 8-inch per square mile drop, which calculates the curvature of our planet. Right. So you travel 1 mile, there's an 8-inch drop. You travel 2. Go on Google. Listen, this is all facts. This is their narrative. In fact, today, Harry, that's all we need to do. Just talk about their narrative, right? So so I travel 1 mile, 8 inches. I travel 2 miles. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 8 is 32. 32 inches. I travel 3 miles. 3 times 3 is 9. 9 times 8 is 72 inches. How can I see Africa, Harry? How is it even possible that I can see Africa on a day when it's really sunny? It's funny, you can't see it. When it's slightly misty, and obviously there's not so much glare from the sun bouncing off the sea, we can see the beautiful outline of Morocco, which is the nearest part. Now, I challenge everyone. You think I'm chatting shit, people? I'll give you some homework to prove this and make the penny drop. I live in Costa del Sol. Okay, put in Fuengirola on Google Maps, then put in Morocco on Google Maps. And then it'll obviously give you the distance. Go type into Google, Earth Curve Calculator, which is what, like I said, this is mainstream narrative. This is mainstream science. This is what they teach our children. They'll tell you that is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of feet below my eye line, because of course we live on a ball, don't we, people? That's on a 15-degree tilt, they're spinning at 1,000 miles per hour. That's what we live on, right? So why and how can I see Africa? Now, if anyone comes back with a mirage, a super lumin one, That's been debunked and been completely destroyed as absolute bollocks thousands of times. And people, anyway, just think about that for a second, people. How can I, with my eyes, if I get my son's telescope, okay, wait a sec, darling. Okay, I'll put it back on for you. Come, let's go in as I'm talking. If I get my son's telescope, and I did this in England, I went down to Southampton because we were living in Wiltshire at the time, okay? And with a telescope, I could probably start seeing people in their flats in Morocco from where I am. Now, on the current narrative that people subscribe to, which is heliocentrism, that is absolutely impossible.
Yeah, it's a key thing. You mentioned the horizon, which I'll touch on next. And again, all of this stuff, guys, is we're looking at what we've been told, narrative. We're not telling you what it is. We're telling you what we think it potentially could be, but we're telling you 1,000,000% what it's not. Because you can go and do all these different tests and experiences yourself to find that. So if you get that horizon out. So the horizon, this is one thing that we're always told is how we know that we live on a ball, is, well, you can see the boats go over the horizon. First of all, look how straight that horizon is. That's got to be at least a mile on that side. Mate, you can see sometimes.
Look, can you see over there? You can also see it over there, the sea?
Mm-hmm. But we only can see that far out, right? So that's our vision with our eyes. And then James said with a telescope, you can go in a bit closer, but that's all we can still see. There's still a lot more land mass there. However, we're told that, oh, it's definitely a ball because you can see the boat go over the horizon. If you've got a telescope out and you followed that boat, you lose it from your line of vision, but then you get a perspective, which is only how far our eyes can see. You zoom in and that boat comes completely into full picture again. And one of the main things that people argue with is that. And I'm like, it just shows how indoctrinated you are by saying that without even thinking about it or just taking the time to look outside. There is no curve that you can physically see ever. Yeah, but you can. I did a skydive. That's a GoPro camera. If you see it, it's a lens like that. The whole world is squashed into this little ball the size of your head. Yeah, but you can see it on the plane. I beg you, go and have a look again. Like, let me see. It's pretty much like that always.
Well, mate, actually, a little fact check in there. So Neil deGrasse Tyson, if you believe in this heliocentrism, he's your current Jesus in this whole globe model, okay?
Actor.
He will tell you, irrefutably, look on YouTube, that you cannot see the curve until you're like 200,000 miles up. When was you ever on a plane that went 200,000? That's mainstream narrative as well. That is the mainstream narrative. So take your plane view back up your backside. I'm sorry, people. You didn't. No, you didn't. Another thing with the horizon, Harry, which ties into the moon landing. Right, people, define in your mainstream dictionary what the horizon is, okay? It is, and look it up, an apparent position. Now, what does apparent mean? Not real, false, fake. It seems like it's over there. That's apparent. Now, why is that important? Because when the moon was hundreds of thousands of miles back where they said it was, to calculate distances, they use something called trigonometry. And guess what? From your standing point, they shoot their mathematics to the horizon, an apparent position, which means as soon as I take 2 steps forward, that apparent position has gone 2 steps further away. Why? Because it's fucking not there. It's an apparent position. But they use trigonometry to work out where the sun, the moon, and the stars are. So everything you've been told, again, prove us wrong, people. Prove it. This is mainstream narrative. I'm telling you the stuff that you'll say, no, that ain't right. Yeah, but that's what you believe. You have to, if you're in belief of heliocentrism, because that's the model they tell you. So everything, moon, stars, sun, distances, has been calculated using trigonometry, which again is a made up language. Maths is made up. Yeah, 2 + 2 is 4. Yeah, But apparently in maths, you can go, yeah, but 4 minus 5 is -1. How can you get -1? Think about that for a minute. In anything reality, how can you ever get a minus? It's made up. So how can they tell you where the sun, the stars, and the moon is off in a position they also tell you is apparent? It's not there.
Well, let's talk about that distances then, because this is another thing, is the trigonometry and how they work it out. I'm like, okay, if they know how to work it out, can you show me how they work out that the sun is 93 million miles away? How they work that out? Trigonometry is 3 points to work out a distance. So what technology, if you can show me, can they send out there to actually then work that 90? Who's been 93 million miles? Like literally, has anyone been there? And if a robot's been there, how did they get there? How did they know how to send the details into the robot to send it there to give us the information back? So that's one. The second one is these planets that are billions of light years away, and they're so far away, and there's more stars than there is grains of sand. Something we're told again, insignificance, right? If they're 2 billion light years away, comprehend that. 2 billion years, not light years, just 2 billion years. We've lived, I'm 33. That's a long time. My life is kind of dragged out. But add a billion plus 2 billion on to top of that, plus all this light stuff in between to say, oh, we've lost time. Like, can you see how confusing this is? Spirituality is, let's simplify it. That my whole body's going, I don't know how to work that out. The numbers are confusing. That doesn't make sense. I feel stressed. If someone just said to me, oh, there are lights in the sky, we're not moving. This is what we feel. The moon's there, like it's definitely not 250,000 miles away. That sun is a light in the sky as well, which looks to be the same size of the moon, but no, it's further out, 2 million on a ratio difference. Like these are just, again, James said, these numbers, the numbers have been made to fill in the gaps. And if you look back at the distance of the sun, that's changed quite a lot over the last 100 years because
So something just came to mind, which reminded me as well, again, of the bullshit with the numbers. People, do you know how many times over history the number of days in a year has changed? Think about that. Think about that for a second. Let that sink in. Go back through history and look at how many different times the number of days in a year has changed. Now, it should fuck your brain up, to be completely honest. But when you're awake, and I'm not saying that not when you're awake, that's the wrong way. But if you strip it back to the simplicity of that, you'll just say, well, yeah, actually, that makes sense because it doesn't matter because time's not real. Yeah, time's not real. It's made up. It's made up. And understand that. Resonate that with your soul. Let your ego, stop your ego. Your ego right now is doing all this noise. Just listen, be aware of it, but then strip it back to what Harry just said. If as a child, you hadn't been told anything and you came out, you get to 2, 3 years old where you're walking, you're starting to grasp concepts and you looked around. Number one, you wouldn't think you're spinning at thousands and thousands of miles per hour. You definitely wouldn't. You would look up at the sky and see, oh yeah, Polaris is there every night with the same constellations, so we can't be traversing 5 million miles per hour across universes because we're seeing the same stars every night, because in mainstream narrative, we shouldn't be. You don't, hello, baby. Actually, Leah, do you feel like you're spinning now? No. You feel like you're spinning? Yeah. Do you really? Yeah. That's a brilliant line. Why do you feel like you're spinning? Okay, here's one for you. Look out at the sea. You see the sea? Yeah. Does it look like everything out there is spinning around? Yeah. I've got it all wrong.
She's been brainwashed. She's been brainwashed. But this comes on to the next bit.
Don't
Is
edit that out in this video. That stays in.
well, this comes to the education, because this, like, again, we come back to, where do you get your beliefs from? When did you get taught this? This topic is very, 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 has a lot of questions and simple things which can't be explained. So what happens is, and I went round my friend's house to cut my hair, and he was like, Harry, look at the stuff there on the TV. It was a BBC program, and every single reference was space. Every single person was wearing an astronaut, every cartoon. So your kids, subconscious, don't know what's right or wrong, and now just sucking in this truth. I want to be an astronaut. That looks really cool. They're all floating. Everyone's in that. When we're an adult, when do you get taught, actually, how do we stay on this ball thing? How do people in Australia not fall off? Like, how are they actually upside down, but we're at the right way up? How? But as a kid, you're told that. And because as a kid, we don't have a conscious brain to question, that becomes so truth because it's repetitive, especially after these TV programs I saw, mate. It was actually like insane. All the kids cartoon.
We had a little wordy character which came down on the spaceship and taught us mathematics. It's twisted when you think about it. Something I just want to mention on, because again, what I always hear, and it really is hilarious. Yeah, but they got the technology. So again, all right, people, here's a question for you. What is the mainstream narrative as to why we've not been back to space? I'll answer it. And this is official.
They lost it.
They lost all the trigonometry data. I'm going to get that in a minute. They lost, and by the way, they stated that the amount of data that it took to get to the moon, I can't remember how many times they said it went around the world. That's right. So they said it was that much data, it went around the world, and they lost it. In fact, they didn't lose it. Some idiot pressed double print because they printed over it. That is the official line that they tell you. And when they went, sort of part B to the answer to that question is, we no longer have the technology. That's the official line. We no longer have the technology. Now, the, again, official narrative is they managed, good old, was it Nixon who phoned?
Yeah. The only moon landings were when Nixon was president.
With the mobile data equivalent to 1G or something like that, wasn't it 1G or 2G?
Oh, yeah, the actual technology was less than a PlayStation, like the original one, PlayStation 2.
That is the official answer. Don't believe us, just go and have a look. And the point is this, I'm laughing about, I'm not mocking, I'm laughing because my soul finds it so funny how I, for so many years, in fact, do you know what? I didn't even believe it, Hazza. I just didn't pay it no mind. I just didn't. And I do remember being in science in my school, Tomwood, and them covering space. And there must have just been some inherent oblivious shutdown. I just stopped going to science. I just remember thinking, this is like when my dad made me go to Sunday school. I've got to sit there and listen to these fairy tale stories, but be told them without any, they don't let you question it either. If you ask questions, I've looked back and I'm honest about how I was as a kid at school. If I didn't find something interesting, or if I questioned it and got shut down, I'd switch off. I'd just switch off, and then I was a bit of a toe rag. But I specifically remember in science, my teacher, and I won't name and shame her, but I remember asking her questions about space and just being told, because that's just what it is, okay? And just sit there. And you just, when you think about that, that's not teaching, that's preaching. That's the complete opposite of what a teacher's supposed to be doing. A teacher's supposed to be, like with my kids, I try as much as possible to have a conversation whereby they use their brain and come back. And yeah, sometimes in my egotistical world, I think, oh, that's a bit of a nonsensical answer, son. But then certain times I've thought about it, I thought, actually, that makes pretty good sense, because you've looked at it from a non-egotistical standpoint as a kid, where everything is innovation, which you're supposed to be doing. Yet you go to school and you get told, sit down in front of someone else. You're now a minor. This person's your major. Again, it all goes back to it's the insignificance. It all goes back to the Big Bang. It's basically telling you you've got no meaning. Now you look at your child in their eyes and you tell me that that's an accident, that child's got no meaning. Because oh no, it's got meaning to me. Yeah, but you're told you ain't got no meaning. Nor is your dad, you are all one big fart in space.
Mm-hmm. And space as well, just the concept of it, because people always like, what's at the edge of the earth then? I'm like, what's at the edge of space? That to comprehend is quite mind-blowing. Think about the earth. Imagine I'm sitting right on the top of Iceland, like I'm literally sitting and I'm in space and I'm looking up. What's up there? what is up there going above me? I've never been shown that. I've been shown all these planets this way, but what's up there? What's down there at the bottom? If I look down and just keep going, because space has got this big thing, what's down there as well? Is there an edge? Do we fall off it? Like, do we get lost in all these black holes that we're told? And
Mate,
just, I was going to say, this is the one that I get people, and again, you can't argue it. Okay, use your logical brain, right? So we're shown pretty much on the photos, this is the Earth. Let's say it's a circle, we can see the whole Earth, right? It's a satellite.
Hold on. Apparently now it's oblique. It's oblique. Yeah. It's more like a pear.
It's like a pear. Thicker in the middle. But look at this then. So this is the Earth. And let's just say we're working on a replica model here. So we can all agree that Australia is there. And I can see the whole thing. So James, if you had your telescope now, and it was the technology, because there's a lot of technology we got, and they can send things 2 billion light years away to give us an image.
And take pictures,
pictures and send them back to us.
Yeah.
So James, you're sitting on Mars now, and you can see the whole Earth. Look, there it is. So you've got your super duper telescope, and you're going to zoom in to Australia. You're just going to keep zooming in. You're going to keep zooming in until you can see people. Are the people standing upside down?
Well, apparently so.
Apparently, yeah. So where's the image of that first? So let's take the same logic, because you're like, no, this perspective. Okay, cool. So we're going to look at it from a broad perspective again. Imagine we got James standing in Iceland and I'm at Australia. And we both send up a hot air balloon at the same time. And remember, we can see from Mars, we can see everything. So the hot air balloons, do they go like that? And if they go like that, that means that hot air balloon's upside down, because I can see the whole thing. So how's that work?
Like, mate, like you said, why wouldn't they, bearing in mind how we now live in a day and age where they take pictures of astronauts in space, why wouldn't there be a constant feed? Because millions of people, I'd be one of them. I'd be happy if I'm wrong on this, because I've looked to be wrong on this and I can't find where I'm wrong. Actually, it's not me. It's not I am wrong. It's what reality I'm experiencing. If that's wrong, then I'm happy to hold my hands up, because why wouldn't they, like you said, in this day and age, why wouldn't there be TikTok videos of people in Australia upside down giving it some, like, mate, they would be #1 hits all over, over the plane. Mate, actually, I'm glad you mentioned hot air balloons, because again, people, okay, there's certain things we're talking about, which again is even hard for us to demonstrate an alternative, which is not really, the emphasis isn't really on us to prove our side. The emphasis is on the narrative for them to prove their side. But anyway, here's something that is factual and you can do yourself with a balloon. Gas has a law. There is a law to gas that can't be manipulated, it can't be changed, it can't be broken. Now, gas, yes, takes different forms, but in its gaseous form, mist form, smoke form, whatever you want to call it, in its gaseous form, the law of gas is simple. Gas will fill the available space. So it doesn't matter what direction it goes. As soon as you pump a bit of gas into anything, it just disperses in all directions all of the time, and it will do for infinity until there is some form of containment for it to bounce back off. Think of a balloon, think of a hot air balloon like Harry just gave a good example of. Now, why is that relevant, people? So, space is the biggest infinite vacuum, I believe, something like to the -17 Tor vacuum. So it is, there's no bigger vacuum than space. You couldn't even imagine it. The whole galaxies are being vacuumed through the universe. All right, cool. That's fair enough. What do they say about Earth? Earth is an open system, heliocentric, a gas ball. How the fuck, how on God's green plane can we, and it's not just Earth, the sun is a big ball of gas as well. What is stopping us? Well, the oxygen. We breathe oxygen. That's what keeps us alive. Oxygen is gas. Everything about our existence revolves around gas because we have to breathe. What is keeping the oxygen on this plane from just shooting up into space into all different directions? Because that's a law. That's a law. That's not a theory. Gravity is a theory, interestingly enough. That's a theory. But this is a law. How can the gas that we breathe on a daily basis, billions and billions and billions of people all over the world, be contained on this plane when on a cold day, you can just do this? What way does it go? It goes up. But does it go up and you can stop and prevent you from breathing? No, there's always gas. How is that possible when we're told we live on an open system? Next to, with no barrier, the biggest, most powerful infinite vacuum ever created.
And carry on with the vacuum and gravity and stuff. Let's take okay, so this is how I think sometimes, just to get your logic working, we have to give a real life scenario. So let's take, you got the candle and then you got a lid on top of the candle, right? So we light the lid, then we put the candle on top, which stops any more oxygen getting to this light. What happens to the candle flame? James, what would happen to the, if I put the lid on top of the candle,
it goes down,
right?
Sorry, I put it back in the audience, sorry.
If I kept that lid on, could I relight that candle?
No.
Okay, so let's take that now. So it's impossible to get ignition because there's no oxygen, right? So when we're in space, there's no oxygen. We've been told that, it's gravity. So when we're on the moon, right? If we've taken all the oxygen out, like we're in this container of vacuum gas or non-gas, how do I ignite my rocket to take back off to land back to Earth if there's no oxygen to light that match? We've just explained that if there's no oxygen, I can't get fire. I can't get ignition, fuel to go and send me up. So how do you explain that? And these are the things, is all this stuff, again, like James said, we're not preaching, we're not telling you what it is, we're just asking you questions. Can you explain that to me?
Yeah.
And if you know, great, can you show me? Like, not which we've received all our life.
Yeah, oh mate, the ridicule we've both had over the years. And it's interesting. Yeah, I might get passionate. I'm just playing a bit of a role in this now. But as you know, Harry, now when I talk about this stuff with people, and I often try not to, because like you said, you get met with aggression over this, is I always start by just asking them, okay, no problem. Can we make sure we define our terms of what we're talking about then? So what you subscribe to is that we're on a spinning ball going over 1,000 miles per hour at the spin at the equator. So, 800 miles per hour or 700 miles per hour, depending where you are. We're on a 15-degree tilt on an axis, okay? We've got people that are stuck to the bottom of the planet aren't spinning off, but there's currently no force that's holding them there because Newtonian gravity. And just to touch on Newton, shout out to Newton, look at his actual transcripts. He said, don't attribute this theory to me. It's basically, this isn't verbatim, but it's just basically an idea I had. That's it. And there's a book, which I can't remember. And there's two books, one of about 200 scientists from Newtonian's period, and then the next book is about 200 from Einsteinian's period, where they both say this is absolute complete nonsense and there's nothing to actually, no scientific evidence. And actually, we should have touched on this at the beginning. To be a scientific fact, there's a stringent method of scientific experimentation it has to follow every time for it then to be classed as fact, because the point of science is to try and prove itself wrong anyway. So to quickly touch on that. So basically, there has to be a hypothesis. Okay, so there's an observation. Initially, it all starts from, and this is true science. Please look it up, because true science is natural science. Guess what, people? Technology isn't science. Cosmology is not science. Any other ologies, they're not science. There's only one science. It's natural science, nature's science. That's science of the earth, okay? Now, for it to be classed as a fact, you make an observation of a natural phenomenon, okay? You then hypothesize on what it is you've seen, to then go on to try and prove your hypothesis with an independent, a dependent, and a controlled variable. If you haven't got those, then it's not a scientific experiment. It just physically, on no stretch, can be. Impossible. So you tell me how they managed to weigh the world and tell us how much it weighs. How'd they do that, Harry?
That's the funny thing as well, like inside the Earth, well, we've got all molten lava and molten rock and stuff. Have you actually checked to see how far we drilled down? It's like 12.5 miles or something. It's the furthest.
I thought it was 7.5. Is it 12.5? Yeah.
12.5, I think, in Russia or something they've gone. So the core of the Earth that we're told has got all this molten lava and there's all these different layers. We're literally using that because of volcanoes as our truth. But we've never actually gone far down enough to see it. We get all these images that were shown, CGI, cartoons, but there's no proof to show that back these up. Space, if you look at any of the NASA launches, Elon Musk, who's a fraud as well, he sent that car up in space. Just go and have a look at that, actually. The journey of the car, they sent it off and apparently it's going to go around the world in 84 years, it's going to come back and it's going to be in the same condition, this metal in space that's right next to the sun that hasn't been melted at all. Like, think about it. Where is that car gone, by the way? Like, are they tracking it? You got a live camera on it? It's just
it was at Dartford with Ali and the boys. They're doing some work on it.
This is the thing, we laugh all the time, because when you look at the laughing for me is how I was fooled.
Yeah.
How I didn't dare to question it. And no one could answer it for me. If, guys, this is what we've been born into as fact, as truth. So if it is, you should be able to show me plenty of evidence of it. Here's another one for you. Type in the blue marble. The only real photo that they say was 1976, this whole Earth. It's a good looking photo. Looks fake as fuck, but good looking photo. If that's the blue marble, and we're told we got all these satellites flying around of us, all this junk rubbish and all the debris in that. Thousands of it. You can type that. Type in satellites orbiting Earth, and NASA send you this photo with all these satellites around it. So we take that. Now look at these photos of Earth, which you see a perfect blue, cloudy, green land. Where's the satellites? They've got the whole Earth there. Where's all the things going across it? Where, to go that far back to take a clear photo, there'd be things in the way. If I look up there and I spend all day looking up there, I'll see a plane go up there. I'll see different things change. But in this photo, not one thing in this whole Earth is going past, not one. There's loads to this, and I think it's again coming back to let go of your ego, because you can quite easily say, well, that's not true. This is what they show me. Just go and show me. Like, I'm really open to watching things, but what I tell you that I won't watch is something you go, well, the moon's phases and that proves. I'm like, that doesn't prove anything. Like, it doesn't prove if we're flat or spinning or whatever. It's just like a made up. Let's go back to the simple questions. How do we spin? How do you prove gravity? How can you show me the curve of the horizon? Like the moon landing, prove that we went there. Let's answer them questions. Let's forget about the Coriolis effect, and that proves that the waters spin down a direction.
No, actually, yeah. Do you know what? Thank you very much. Coriolis. People, do you know what Coriolis is? Because again, these things, and just to quickly to chip this in at this point, the point of this video for me is just how once I had to unwire and untrain my brain, my ego took a kicking on this one, because it is, I would realize how fooled I was. But the beauty of that lesson was, this is what made me want to become a soul coach. This is what made me want to be spiritual, is finding this truth. Because what this truth does, it, like I said, for me, it took me back to realizing that and being okay with, do you know what, James? Your daughter is a perfect example of creation. James, so are you. Harry, so are you. And being all right, it makes you realize that you are special. That's not egotistical. I appreciate knowing that I'm part of creation. I am created in God, what Allah, whatever you want to call it, image. Yeah, that's, do you know what? It makes me, all my family, and everybody else on this plane it makes me just think how amazing you all are. We all are. Okay, so that's the point of this, first and foremost. Coriolis. Okay, Coriolis. Again, you're Jesus. Your current Einstein is Neil deGrasse Tyson. It's been removed, but you can still get this on YouTube. So I can't remember it. Let's say it was the Dodgers and the Packers. The Dodgers and the Packers are in the NFL final. The whole of America is watching this game. And there was a famous tweet that went out that in the light, it was one of them ones, like just incredible last kick of the game. This guy boots this ball and and obviously gets a touchdown or not, whatever it is, the goal, whatever it is. Shouldn't be called football. You're using your hands, people. Football's English. Anyway, Neil deGrasse Tyson pops up and he's got millions of followers and says, yeah, the reason that ball crossed over the goalpost was because of Coriolis. So what Coriolis is, people, this is what we're told, is the Earth is spinning below us. Okay, so then you've got a reference frame. You've got an inertia reference frame. You've got two reference frames. So the reason that ball traveled further is because underneath okay, let's say that the Earth is spinning this way, that way around. I think it's east to west. No, it's west to east that the Earth spins. So it's spinning that way around. The ball is going that way. And Harry, this should be leading you on to another point after the football example. So because the Earth is spinning underneath the ball had enough power to go the distance it did because the Earth was spinning underneath. That is a very layman's example of Coriolis, okay? And this is fact, look it up, define Coriolis. Okay, this is what we're told, that this is how snipers make their 2-mile shots. And guess what? There are hundreds of snipers online that will tell you, we don't use Coriolis for shit. There's no such thing as Coriolis, okay? Also, aviators, pilots, you can find this online. Pilots are taught to fly a plane on a non-moving surface. What? Look it up.
Boat's navigation is on a flat navigation. There's no curve to get to Ireland from UK. You don't have to do this. It's all on a flat map. So it's nonsense, really, when we think about the things that you can just work out yourself.
Touch on the planes, Harry. Come on, I lined you up perfectly.
Which part of the... Pardon?
Like you know, so obviously...
So another thing that you can prove quite easily that we can't be on a spinning globe is there's certain flight directions. If you used to look at the map, it would make sense. Let's take South Africa and South America. It looks quite close on here, right? And you just get a straight flight there. But there's no flight that goes there, or in the time. We have to go into like Dubai and then go all the way over, back down again. On the map, it's like, on a flat looking map, it literally goes to the midpoint, which is the check-in, then out again. And you can follow flight maps. If you look on the map that we're showing, where you've got it all here in front, all the planes seem to go into the middle. They don't just go across to the shortest destination, which by trigonometry, you could work out. Actually, that would make more sense going there. That's safe fuel. That'd be good for climate change. That would get more people be flying, but that doesn't happen. Doesn't make any sense.
Mate, sorry, I've just seen the time has. I've got to get Leo.
Okay.
One last thing on this, mate. This is what I mean. This is just a part one, people. This is just a teaser. One other thing, just on, and I want to. This is what is my leaving point. And Harry, please, you wrap up after. But with the planes, okay. So the Earth, you know, people, because your ego tells you, we're spinning west to east at let's just say it's 500 miles per hour, right? So when you're flying from west to east, let's say from the west coast of America to the east coast of America, yeah, obviously, you're flying with the spin of the Earth. Now, according to Coriolis, obviously, we're flying within the same direction. So, of course, the speed of the plane is matching the speed of the Earth. Now, hold on a minute. When we fly back the other way against the spin of the Earth, why does it not take half the time to get to the destination? Think about it. If you're spinning one way and you're going with a spin, yeah, Jamaica's spinning away from me. So, all right, cool, I've got to catch up with Jamaica. But hold on, now I'm coming back. Jamaica's coming to me. Why isn't it not taking a fraction of the time to get to the destination? You show me any example of anything spinning where you go one way and it takes a certain amount of time, and you go the other way and it takes the same amount of time. How can that be possible? How can it be possible? Has I got to go, mate? Mate, I've loved it.
Well, let's simplify that last one on the plane as well. We always go east to west, west to east, but we never go from north underneath to south, ever. Like, you never see these routes going over your top. But yeah, that would make more sense from just an energy efficient point, because we do a lot for our Earth, didn't we? but this, again, this keeps coming back to spirituality for me, because it's finding out the truth. It's now, and the thing is, you get more interested in everything we're told, and now you're now paying attention, which then leads you into more history, that leads you into more people you connect with, to more teachings and the Aborigines and all the indigenous ways of life we're now finding out about, and that's the journey that we've been on.
So, tune into part 2. I gotta go. You're killing it, Harry. You're killing it. I'm a fan.
Let's talk health.